Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a brand new edition of the Lashing Out Podcast on the Nittany Sports Now Network. My name is Jarrod Prugar, and I'm joined by my friend and co-host Kevin Quigley. Kevin, Penn State's defense was as advertised. I get it; it was Villanova, but they just had a smothering and just absolutely dominant brand of defensive football. And Villanova just absolutely struggled to do much of anything until the second and third teams in the fourth team really got out there late in the game with that backdoor cover with the last second touchdown pass. That was exactly what Penn State needed defensively in their 52-6 win over Villanova on Saturday.
Yeah, and I think just a dominant performance from the defense. And, they had it on the TV that if without that last second touchdown, this would have been Penn State's first back-to-back shutout since 1996. So just all around a dominant performance. And if you're watching that game from the defensive perspective and you're a Penn State fan and you were tuning in to see how well that they were actually going to perform, they held up their end of the bargain. You're playing that FCS opponent. Granted, Villanova is a good FCS team. They can probably beat some of the lower ranked FBS teams if I had to guess. Looking at Akron Zips. That lower 10 tier of the FBS, I think Villanova could be pretty competitive against them. I think it'd be an interesting matchup to watch. But if you are a Penn State fan and you logged in just to watch the Penn State defense yesterday, I don't think that there's anything that you can say was a negative. 28 guys had a tackle. Defense was just getting experience all up and down the board. I mean, every play, it felt like every play in the fourth quarter, I'm looking at the roster online just to see who the heck is that guy. A lot of true freshmen, a lot of guys who are just, they were playing high school games last year, and now they're playing in front of 109,000 people. Considerably less by the time they were making those plays late in the fourth quarter, but just a dominant performance from the defense and smothered Villanova.
And they did everything they needed to do. They made the lives of the quarterbacks for Villanova a living nightmare. They scored. They checked off every box that you wanted. Amari Campbell was at another great game. Nittany Rojas was in the backfield early and often. The offense or defensive line was stellar once again. The secondary was solid. It was, and again, it was Villanova. I get it, but to have, what, 15, 45, about 42 or however many odd um, minutes and some seconds before giving up a score, with your walk-ons in, that's an impressive game. Defensively, that's exactly what they want. You get a defensive touchdown. Anytime you're able to do that, it is good. You're getting the ball, you're picking it off. Now the secondary does finally have their first interception. They've picked the ball off, all three games. And again, I understand it was Nevada, FIU, and Villanova, but again, good defense translates. And I know that it's not the end all be all because you're not playing a high powered offense or what have you, but it's still good to see Penn State throw up that dominating game yet again and still, perform the way that they did.
I think the only maybe slight knock is that last drive was 16 plays, 75 yards. Villanova had 179 in total all of Saturday. So to give up 75 yards on that drive is a little disheartening. Granted, that is your twos and your threes, probably a lot of your fours as well. But 6.5 minutes. If you're Penn State, like I felt like you wanted to give Ethan Grunkemeyer maybe one more drive. And it felt like, Villanova getting the ball back with 6.5 minutes. You're like, all right, Penn State can maybe give up a first down or two, but Ethan's going to have another chance. Does he have 4 minutes? Does he have 3.5 minutes? And I think that's probably the only thing that's like that's the only thing I would want better from the defense is just one more stop and not give up a 75-yard drive. But I think the brightest spot of the defense yesterday was Nittany Rojas. I mean, it just felt like he was everywhere. Denying Dennis Sutton is just disruptive. The whole D line with their three sacks. Only 3 sacks, but I mean, Villanova didn't throw the ball, and they didn't have time to do anything. So their quarterbacks are very smart, got rid of the ball, a lot of incompletions. But man, Nittany Rojas yesterday, he was on full display, and I think good linebacker play, especially on the perimeter, out in space, somebody who can just be anywhere. that, if you're Oregon and you're, you know, when you're in that pre-snap, you're gonna have to go find 13. You're gonna have to find where 33 is because that's where your protection is gonna have to slide to, and you're gonna have to go find 13 and figure out where is this guy gonna be just cause my next disruption. Just what a great game from him, and I think what he put out there yesterday will also translate.
Rojas and Amari Campbell have played some really good football through 3 games at the linebacker position. Both of them are playing some really lights out type of ball. Again, we know the opponents, but that type of play will translate no matter who it is. Yes, it will get harder, and it gets harder after the bye week. The bye week is a great thing for Penn State. And, it's funny. We're talking about how dominant the defense is. The offense, helped. They put up some serious points too, but it wasn't pretty for the offense. And I think that's been the biggest issue for 3 games now, is it just is not pretty football despite putting up big numbers.
Yeah, and I think if you're on YouTube, you can watch this. Sorry, bad transition here. But if you're listening, it's on YouTube, so it's gonna be bad viewing for you. But this just is the epitome. This is that third down call late in the game. This is where Khalil Dinkins ends up being out of bounds, kind of down by the 15 or 20 yard line. This play is wide open to Kyron Hudson. Oh, here we go. This is the play that ends up going incomplete over to Khalil Dinkins, just forced into here. Drew looked at this to Kyron Hudson for like half a second. He didn't give it any sort of credibility. And Kyron ends up running kind of towards the 10. And this safety here was able to drop back because he saw Drew's eyes look at him. So he looked at it long enough for the safety to drop back. But throw this ball, even if it's here, like Kyron Hudson's going to come down with this ball. But if you're Hudson, like just make that slight adjustment to your route. If you run to this hash, or even if you run somewhere in this envelope between the red arrow and the blue arrow, like that's 6 all day long. And I think this offense, like it's ready to be explosive. It's ready to be dominant. But like, I don't know if the Notre Dame interception is just looming large in Drew's head, or like if he's just scared, or like, was this play just predetermined? Like get Khalil Dinkins the touch. I think that's also in play early in the season. But this is one of those things where it's like, this has to be a touchdown. It's 3rd and 1 from the 27, 28 yard line. Like they ended up settling for a field goal here. There's no reason this did not end up in 6. And I think this is where the offense is just lacking that little bit of fine tuning. Granted, they have the bye week to get this set, but we finally got a wide angle view of the offense on TV, which was awesome. And like, this was just so disheartening to see because this is 6 all day long. So
yeah, and it should be. But again, it's funny because we're making so much small talk and so much discussion of the minutiae of the offense because they haven't had the success that we're expecting. The expectations of Drew Aller coming back for that final year and knowing what he's capable of, and now that he has some really good receivers, right? So I mean, the expectations are there. I think there's such lofty expectations, it's so difficult for him to meet them game in and game out. But there's a lot of meat left on the bone, like we talked about the past 3 weeks. You look at the stats from Saturday. Aller 16 of 29, 209 yards, a touchdown. He threw an interception. Right? Grunkemeyer was 1 for 2, 19 yards, a touchdown, and whatever. Again, you have to be able to. I don't know. Those stats aren't good for Drew Aller. Let's be real. 16, it's a 55% completion rating, or a completion percentage, I should say. 209 yards. You want more against Villanova, and let's be real. They weren't really testing the ball downfield. They weren't really worried about anything like that. A lot of stuff was pretty short, really medium routes. So I don't think that they've even opened up the second page of the playbook to get to a point where they'll dial up all these explosive plays. But, there's still a lot of meat left on that bone offensively, especially in the passing game, knowing that you have Trevor Pena, you have Devontae Ross, and you have guys like that now in Kyron Hudson that can go deep and play the ball. and get the ball. Reynolds had, I thought, a great game. But again, there's a lot left to be desired so far if you're the Penn State offense, despite all of the success. Let's be real. Penn State's 3-0. They have not been in danger of losing a single game this year, but there's still a lot left that I think meets the eye.
Yeah, and we're critical of Drew. I mean, 55% completion rate is not what he wants to be. I bet you he's probably being more critical to himself here. And then I'm not trying to nitpick him. But I mean, they said James Franklin said he wants 70% completion out of Drew Aller. I think they said four quarterbacks in all of FBS had that last year. But if you're Drew Aller coming back to the senior season, the expectation is to be a top 4 quarterback in college football. He is a guy who is very much capable of being at least 68 to 70% completion. It's lofty, but he's a guy who has the arm talent for it. He's got the accuracy. He just needs to trust. It's almost like he doesn't trust himself. And I just hope that in the bye week, he's able to find just that inner belief and just trust what he sees, trust the offensive line, because, did he pull off of that deep route to Hudson because he didn't trust that the offensive line was going to pick up any sort of pressure Villanova was bringing? Or was it predetermined? So if he's comfortable that his feet are there and then he can set it and step into that throw, maybe he does make that, or maybe they're just trying to get guys touches. I don't know. I'm cautiously optimistic. I think other teams around the country are also struggling mightily on
just like you are with your words.
I was trying to let that slide, but thanks.
You're welcome.
But this team rushed, had 465 yards of offense, 237 yards on the ground. Katron Allen probably is the story on the offense, averaged over 8 yards a carry. A little concerning that Franklin was talking about getting Nick double the touches just because he might be lacking some confidence or anything. And I think that's just one of those things, these guys just have to go play an all-out game against some high-level competition just to know that, they're still that dude. Because Nick doesn't have that same pizzazz. It felt like he's gradually been fading out since his freshman year. It feels like Katron's only gotten better. So it's kind of concerning, but Nick has all the talent in the world. And I think he just needs to hit the hole hard. Drew needs to trust the throws. Nick needs to hit the hole hard. You mentioned it, Trevor Pena. He was stellar yesterday, but he was really only involved early. I think he got 3 touches on the first drive and ended up with 8 touches total, so kind of fizzled out on his production. But I think Luke Reynolds has been a bright spot. They were kind of looking for that Tyler Warren replacement. It's unfortunate that Dinkins is going to get jumped by Reynolds, but they can't play the seniority game all the time. I think they're going to make some big roster decisions. I think you're going to see Katron getting more carries down the stretch. I think you're going to see Reynolds in more passing situations. He's going to be getting a lot more snaps on the offense, but 2 weeks till the whiteout, 2 weeks till Oregon. It's no longer a top 5 matchup, but it doesn't make it any less important. And that's going to be a real test for this team.
Right. And again, Penn State's 3-0. They're right where they need to be. They're still number 2 team in the country heading into the bye week, which is exactly what we all expected they would be. Now, they're in a much better situation than most of the country. And we're going to talk about some of the things going on around the country when we come back for the second segment of the Lasching Out Podcast on the Nittany Sports Now Network. Welcome back to the second segment of the Lasching Out Podcast on the Nittany Sports Now Network. He's Kevin. I'm Jarrod. Kevin, Penn State's 3-0. They've not really been tested on the scoreboard. Their offense has struggled at times. But if you look around the top 10 and the top 25 as a whole, it looks a lot different than what it started the season as, just like we expected. But I don't know that anybody expected Clemson to be as bad as what they are. Notre Dame is 0-2. And, and Alabama is Alabama. But and it's not the old Alabama. It's a danger zone type deal. But for Penn State, they're in a very fortunate spot. But a lot of teams have it worse than Penn State does. And one of the teams that, we have been texting back and forth, LSU is right behind them, number 3. They have struggled, much like Penn State has offensively. Now, they've played teams with slightly better pulses, I guess, than you would say Nevada and FIU, who might at this point be the best team out of the teams that they've played. But LSU beat Clemson. That win doesn't look nearly as good now. They beat Louisiana Tech, which is whatever. And then they just beat a Florida team that lost to USF, and it really isn't any good. And Garrett Nussmeier is very much in the same position that Drew Aller is in.
Yeah, I think the post-game interview with Brian Kelly, I think, just shows you that it is as big of an issue as we think it is. You're not very fond of the guy. I think he's just content in my eyes. But the first question of the reporter section of his post-game interview is asking about the offense, and he struck that nerve. And Brian Kelly just lit that reporter up. And it's a fair assessment. Clemson, they only scored 17 points on Clemson. Clemson gave up 16 points to Troy and 24 points to Georgia Tech yesterday. LSU's offense has looked not great. It took five interceptions from DJ Lagway for LSU to even win the game by 10 points. Granted, it was a 5.5 point spread. They did beat the spread. The spread was probably inflated because they think Florida is actually better than they are. And I don't think it's that Clemson overperformed. I think it's that Florida underperformed of where people's expectations were for them. But Nussmeier just doesn't look good. He's a preseason Heisman favorite. Hasn't looked anywhere close to being that. And if you had to tell me, like, I have Penn State's offense or LSU's offense for the rest of the season, I'm definitely taking Penn State's offense over the Tigers down in Louisiana.
Yeah, I mean, let's compare Drew Aller and Nussmeier here for a second. You know, Nussmeier against Clemson, 28 of 38, 232, a touchdown. He was sacked once. At La Tech, which was a 23-7 win. So, like, that's a 20. You only won by 16 against Louisiana Tech. Louisiana Tech, in my opinion, isn't good. Like, LSU needs to be blowing the doors off of teams like that. 26 of 41, 237, a touchdown and interception. He was sacked 3 times. Florida, 20-10 win, 15 of 27, 220 yards, 55% completion percentage, touchdown and interception, wasn't sacked. So at least they improved that. But when you're getting sacked 3 times at La Tech, A, your guys weren't ready. B, you threw 41 times. You should never have to throw 41 times against Louisiana Tech. Now, let's talk about Drew Aller here. 22 of 26 for 217 against Nevada. 84% completion percentage, 1 touchdown. He was sacked once. FIU, 34-0, 19 of 33, 200 yards, 2 touchdowns, 42-yard pass for that deep ball, and sacked twice. Villanova, we talked about 16 of 29, 209, 55%. Now, you want to fix those completion percentage, touchdown, interception, but wasn't sacked. The fact of the matter is, Drew Aller's getting out of the game in the third quarter, whereas Nussmeier has to play the entire time because his offense has no flow.
Yeah, overall in the season, Nussmeier's got about 60 more passing yards. The completion percentage is nearly identical. Nuss has 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Drew's is 4-1. But LSU's run game is 3.7 yards a carry. Penn State's averaging 5.5. Like, granted, the competition is different. LSU has had to play a significantly harder schedule, but man, it doesn't look crisp because it's not. Clemson's defense is good, but it's beatable. Florida's defense, it really isn't there. I don't think they have anything. I mean, their offense
is okay. Their offense is god awful.
And then who they play? Did they play La Tech? Yeah, they played La Tech and only put up 23 points. Like, struggled against them, and it's like, man, you should really have put up at least 50 points against La Tech. Like, you're paying La Tech to come in and get beat. I think it was a 36.5 point game, and it's just underwhelming there. LSU, I mean, it's just not been pretty. Somehow there's still 2 first place votes. I don't think Penn State should have 5 first place votes. There's five teams in the poll that have a first place vote. Obviously, Ohio State has the most at 55. Penn State has 5. Miami, the 4th ranked team in the country, has 3. LSU, the 3rd ranked team in the country, has 2. I don't
understand. You mentioned Miami at number 4. Yeah, they beat South Florida. I don't think South Florida was the 18th team in the country by any means. Again, Florida the University of Florida is not a good football program right now. They get that recency bias where they were good under Urban Meyer and guys
which isn't
like
even that
that.
recent.
Right. But man, they were not good. But this is why preseason rankings, right? I don't think that Oregon needed to drop 2 spots because they beat Northwestern by 20 in a noon game, flying 2/3 of the way across the country. That to me is utter bullshit. But I don't make the rules. Georgia beat Tennessee on a fluke on the road, which is a good win for Kirby Smart. I don't know that warranted what they did. I think if anything, everybody just stayed the same. But here we are. Again, the grass isn't always greener. I mean, you got Texas, right? Texas is 2-1. They struggled against UTEP. Their offense is god awful, and they got the heir apparent to quarterbacking everywhere in Arch Manning, who has struggled with the Longhorns, and now we see why he wasn't playing ahead of Quinn Ewers.
Yeah, that's a mea culpa on my part. I thought he was a little bit better than Ewers. Not a really high bar. I don't think Ewers was a particularly great college quarterback. I did see something today where Arch Manning would be the end of all nepotism. I thought that was pretty hilarious.
He's setting nepotism back.
long way for that. I don't see LSU being the 3rd team in the country. I think Miami should be number 3. Georgia jumping Oregon. Georgia should have lost that game. Like Tennessee,
yes.
Tennessee blew it. Came down to their field goal kicker, and man, I feel bad for that kid. I think he had never kicked a field goal in the 4th quarter before, or never had a chance to win or tie a game. A lot of pressure. You've got, they were the 6th ranked team in the country. They weren't favored to win. Like that was a massive kick, and there's nothing that can prepare you for that pressure. I thought Tennessee looked good otherwise. I think they faltered late in that game. Let's see, what was the 4th quarter? No, it was pretty all right. That's right. They went up 21-0. They went up big early, and they just kind of like fizzled out from there. So, yeah, it's just weird. Like the rankings just. I love the season of college football. I have no idea who the best team in the country is right now. Like there's no clear front runner. Like Michigan tried to do something with Bryce Underwood this week. I think he looked really good but it's Central Michigan. But it's the best he's looked. I mean, it's his 3rd college start. It's the best he's looked of the 3.
And again, it was directional Michigan.
It is, but I mean, he made leaps and bounds. I think he threw for like 240. I think he still ran for like almost another 120. So.
114 and 2 touchdowns. Yeah. I mean, and that's what you want to see. You want to see that progression with your quarterbacks. And we're not seeing that with Drew Aller necessarily. But again, it's still early and they haven't really been truly tested. But then you go to, the A&M game, and we'll talk about this game in our picks after in the 3rd segment, but Notre Dame lost at home and gave up 41 points, and yet somehow they're still ranked, which is a whole other story that I really don't have time for. But that is, again, utter bullshit if you want to talk about it lightly. They're 0-2, and they lost to Miami in Miami, and they lost 1 point, to A&M. But you gave up 41 points. And I'm just going to tell you this right now. Texas A&M's quarterback was wetting the bed quite a bit late in that game, and he looked like he almost crapped in his britches on that final touchdown throw he threw in OT. In the 4th quarter, right at the end there. But they got the job done, and that is what mattered most for A&M. But again, Vanderbilt goes into South Carolina and just boat races them, which Shane Beamer is always due for a game like that, right? Georgia Tech takes down Clemson. We both thought that was going to be the case, and it was. Like Clemson is not good. Clemson at 1-1 probably shouldn't have been ranked number 12, but again, that recency bias. They were recently good. They haven't really been good since the portal became the Wild Wild West, and because the ACC is so bad, no team has, taken over for that. Oklahoma played on the left or on the right side of the state of Pennsylvania and took down Temple in a bizarre. I'm not quite sure why they went to Temple, but kudos to Temple for being able to host Oklahoma. But again, Iowa State struggled with Arkansas State. Ole Miss struggled with Arkansas. Wisconsin, can't almost, not almost, but made it a little more of a game there late. And for Penn State, all that matters is winning. They're winning. They're dominating defensively. That's right. That's what James Franklin wants to do. James Franklin wants to dominate defensively, and the offense will just do enough to win the game. They're not going to boat race teams. I mean that they should beat, and maybe they will unless it's a Maryland where they hate each other. But right now he has them right where they want them, right where he wants them, and I think that's a really good position for Penn State to be in.
Yeah, after 3 weeks, 3-0, everybody's healthy pretty much for the most part. A couple dings and dents there here and there, but a lot of good film out there, and a lot of good film from the offense performing well and the defense performing well, and also a lot of good film to learn from. So they've got 13 days at this point in time to get ready for Oregon. Whiteout, big atmosphere. Oregon's got to fly across the country. That is a night game. Has been announced, right? It's on NBC.
Yes.
So, a little bit better for Oregon to fly across the country than play a night game versus a noon game. So I would expect them to have their best for that as well. So, we're in the bye week.
We're into the bye week. Oregon has Oregon State in a rivalry game. I don't think that's going to be a big issue for the Ducks, but that's not an easy game heading into a marquee matchup. They'll probably end up back in they might not. It depends on how things go. But again, Penn State's right where they need to be. And we're going to talk more about life around the top 25 and where we are with our picks when we come back for the third and final segment of the Lashing Out Podcast on the Nittany Sports Now Network. Welcome back to the third and final segment of the Lashing Out Podcast on the Nittany Sports Now Network. He's Kevin. I'm Jarrod. Kevin, I know what's going to happen here. You're going to tell me how well we did on our picks because I know, yet again, I beat you.
Yes, you are now up 2 on the season. Although I've got to question my pick, and I think I did question it texting you last night, but that's for later. We both picked Georgia Tech over Clemson. We both have called out Clemson on being frauds. Georgia Tech.
They're not even frauds. They're just not good. They can't even be considered a fraud because we've known from week 1 they're not good.
Preseason rankings had them up high. Cade Klubnik was supposed to be a Heisman frontrunner. We're 3 weeks into the season. I have no idea who's the Heisman frontrunner right now. I have no idea. Really, I don't think anybody is separated. Usually there's one guy in September where it's like, oh, that guy's going to win the Heisman. I don't think
it's not Nico Imaliva.
No, it's not. That's some big news we can talk about later as well. Tennessee, we both picked Tennessee over Georgia. If they had a competent field goal kicker or just knew how to hold on to a 21-7 lead, we'd have been correct. So we were wrong there. You picked A&M over Notre Dame. I thought Notre Dame, bad missed holding call on the last play, but again, you can't give up.
Hate to see it.
You can't give up 41 points at home, especially for a team that was known for running the ball, controlling games, and playing big defense last year. You give up 41 points to, I think, Marcel Reed was like 16 of 37 or 17 of 37 last night. Like terrible completion percentage, like less than 50% completion percentage, and you still give up 41 points.
He was crapping himself quite a bit. It was great. It was a wild ride.
But Lloyd Carr's grandson, his name is escaping me. It is Carr. I can't remember his first name. I think he threw a couple picks and just didn't get it done. This is the one where I asked you, like, I was pulling for Vanderbilt the whole game. The little Clemson alumni in me crept back in, but also I was like watching this game and I was like, did I pick Vandy? Like, why did I not pick them? And then I pulled up our sheet and sure enough, we both picked South Carolina. I don't remember picking South Carolina. I had to go back and listen to our last episode to confirm that I picked South Carolina because I could have sworn I picked Vanderbilt, but I didn't. The tape don't lie. And then Miami just dog walked USF through a lightning delay. You're now up 2. So you have 11 points this season. I have 9. Since it is the bye week, actually, let's get to the news first that we haven't talked about yet. Both UCLA and Virginia Tech have fired their head coaches. Former defensive coordinator Brent Pry just had a tough go at Virginia Tech.
Yeah, he inherited a bad program, and they just were never able to get good.
They never had a quarterback, and college, obviously in college, like if you don't have a quarterback, like you're not going to do shit.
And Virginia Tech, let's be real, has never been a top tier program.
Don't tell their fan base that. Do not tell their fan base that they're not a top
even under program. Even under Frank Beamer, they were a good program, but they were in that second tier, and that's exactly their niche. Have a good year once every 4 years, have a good class come up. But man, he retired, and then they just did not do a good enough job replacing him. And Fuentes was god awful. I feel bad for Brent Pry because I don't know that this is his fault, but when you're inheriting, and I'm going to paraphrase something that the FS1 announcers tried to say on the broadcast, which was god awful because I watched the game from home, being on baby watch and all that fun stuff. You can't make chicken salad out of chicken shit, and that's really what Brent Pry had to do, and he just wasn't able to make it into anything, and that sucks. I would imagine he'll bounce around somewhere. He'll end up. My prediction is a defensive analyst at Penn State, and then see what happens because I don't know how long Jim Knowles is going to be there, but I would imagine there will be an olive branch thrown out there by James Franklin some way or another, and he got his doors blown in by former offensive coordinator Ricky Ronnie, in Old Dominion, and they lost twice. Virginia Tech lost twice to ODU, once at their place and once in Blacksburg, and that can't happen.
No, and their AD is a little bit delusional. I think their NIL budget for the season for football is like $7 million. There are teams in their there are teams in their conference paying $8 million for a quarterback. Looking at you, Duke and Darian Mensah, he got $8 million to leave Tulane to come to Duke, and Virginia Tech's entire budget is $7 million. And if you talk to the fan base of Virginia Tech, and like, God love them, but they're just so delusional. Like they think of themselves as a top 5 program, and they're just not. Like, they're a respectable football program. They've got a big alumni base. Like Virginia Tech dominates the news waves in Virginia, and like when Virginia Tech is good, like the vibe of the state is different. But like they just see themselves as a top 5 program, and quite frankly, they've not been that since Michael Vick left. And like, I think they're fully capable of being that 12 to 20 ranked team in the country. Yes. Like they should be a fringe college football playoff team, but like second or third in the ACC is about their ceiling. Like Clemson should win the ACC every year. Like there should be no competition for Clemson. Maybe Duke or UNC makes a splash. I think Georgia Tech has a legitimate shot this year to win the conference. Florida State is just gonna, Florida State should be Florida State and Clemson every year.
It should be.
So Virginia Tech, maybe they're the 3rd to 5th best team in the ACC, but like they should be in the hunt. And unfortunately, they just never got that. And, I feel bad for Brent Pry. I think he's a great dude. I think he's a great coach. Does he end up as a defensive analyst at Penn State for the rest of the season? I think it's a legitimate possibility. Has a $6 million buyout from Virginia Tech. So not hurting for cash at this point in time. Gets to move back home, be within 45 minutes of home, Altoona product. So, maybe he ends up there, another good set of eyes, get another defensive coordinator in there. Not that the defense needs a lot of help, but just right. an extra set of good eyes.
That's my prediction. I don't know anything, but that would be great to see. Now, one of the other we're talking about Penn State assistants, and UCLA was just an absolute tire fire. I don't think they're going to be any good. Chip Kelly knew what was going on. He got out when he needed to get out. They should have never left the Pac-12 and come to the Big Ten. It is what it is. But when you're getting steamrolled by teams that you just should not get steamrolled by, obviously got to make a change. But Manny Diaz got beat by Tulane. Tom Allen, obviously defensive coordinator at Clemson. Jaywan Sider, RB's coach at Notre Dame. Those were all losses. Joe Moorhead lost. Taylor Stubblefield is the wide receivers coach at Air Force, which I did not know. But They lost to Utah. They were currently losing at the time I wrote my tweet at 12 o'clock this morning, where Sandy Barber is the interim AD. Mike Yursich in Youngstown State got throttled by Michigan State. On the wing column, Charles Huff, who's now at Southern Miss. Tyler Bowen is the offensive line coach at Ohio State. And Sean Spencer is the D-line coach at Texas A&M, to name some former Penn State assistants. But, grass isn't always greener on the other side, Kevin. We talked about that with Penn State and their wins versus some of the teams in the top 25 that, hey, guess what? It's all you got to do is win. Just win, baby. Like, it's that simple.
I feel bad for Deshaun Foster. I don't think he was maybe the right person to take the job, or like he was certainly not supported at all.
I think they left him out to dry, but he was a UCLA guy. You thought that was going to be beneficial, but they don't support anything but basketball at UCLA.
And like his opening statement at the Big Ten Media Days from his first season at UCLA, that started going around the internet today, and he's just talking about like, yeah, I don't know if you guys have heard of UCLA. We're in Los Angeles with USC, and it's like no one in the program thought to help him prepare an opening statement. Like, even if the guy says I got
big
this,
yikes.
I don't think he did, but like somebody from the PR department needs to get in and like prepare a statement for him, at least like sit him down and be like, hey man, here's some talking points you can go with, because he's a football coach. He's not a sit in front of the media and talk guy. Yeah, I just feel bad for him, but you have to make the change. New Mexico goes in there and absolutely dominates you in front of like 400 people at the Rose Bowl. Like bad look. That's enough negativity. Let's get on. It is the bye week, so there will be no pregame show this week because we won't have a pregame. There's no game to preview. So we're going to do our week 4 picks now. Give you a little preview of the schedule to come, because I know with the NFL schedule dominating today, that may not have looked forward.
It worked out for some of us.
Yeah, did not work out for me. That's all right. Texas Tech, the big noon kickoff of the weekend. Texas Tech travels to Utah, number 17 on the road, facing number 16 Utah Utes.
Is that that's got to be like a 10 a.m. game?
It's got to be close to 10 a.m. That's awful. Fox just loves to ruin college football. We all know that. It's still weird to me that's a Big 12 game. It's still weird to me. I don't know. Utah's got a running quarterback.
It's not Cam Rising?
No, it is not.
Did he actually graduate, or has he got his doctorate now?
They've got a guy named Devin Dampier. Looks like he's a running guy. Texas Tech looks like they have a high-flying offense. Spread just like it always is. Utah's a 3.5-point favorite.
Give me Tech.
You want Tech? All right, I'm gonna go Utah. I have no idea that game. I haven't watched either of them, but
yeah,
it's for the content. All right, Tulane. I think this is the game of the weekend. Not necessarily the game of the weekend. This is a game that I'm gonna have my eyes peeled on. Tulane travels to number 13 ranked Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin's already being rumored for the Florida job, which isn't even open yet. But I think Tulane, coming off of the Duke game where they were able to, really handle Duke. Duke was able to come back late. Tulane narrowly gets past Southern Alabama, who gave Auburn a fit this past weekend, and they beat Northwestern by a margin similar to Oregon. Do you want to do the spread? Ole Miss is 11.5-point favorite. I think I said that already. I think that's a 3:30.
The spreads have been so wild this year. I'm staying away from the spread, but I want Ole Miss.
I do think it's Ole Miss, but I think it'll be intriguing.
Yeah, I think it'll be close, but I think Ole Miss is good enough. Listen, it's every year for Lane Kiffin. Tickets are as low as $49 though.
This is the Big Ten game of the weekend to me. Although there is another there's Battle of Indiana. Purdue goes to Notre Dame. That should be interesting. See if Notre Dame can
go Purdue.
Yeah. That we're not picking that one, but Notre Dame's a 26.5-point favorite. Interesting. All right, number 21 Michigan, the 3:30 game on CBS. Number 21 Michigan travels to Memorial Stadium in Lincoln, Nebraska, to take on the 3-0 Corn Huskers, led by Dylan Raiola. Michigan is only a 1.5-point favorite traveling into Lincoln. I think Notre Dame. Nebraska has looked good. This is year 3 for. Oh my gosh. Help me out here. Matt Rule. Holy cow. Blanked on that one. Year 3 for Matt Rule. This is usually, he follows the laws of threes. I'm going with Nebraska.
I'm going Michigan. I don't think they'll have a problem with Nebraska. It's a nice little early season test, but they've already been tested, and it seems like they handled it pretty well, even after losing to Oklahoma. And Nebraska isn't close to Oklahoma as far as that goes, so I got Michigan.
I think Nebraska has a formidable defense, and I think it might be the hardest defense that Michigan has faced this season. Although Nebraska has not been tested at all. They had Houston Christian, Go Huskies last week, and Akron the week before. So interesting game. 3:30 again on CBS. South Carolina travels to number 23 ranked Missouri. South Carolina, man, they fell from the rankings after this season. Bo Perbula's doing well at Missouri. They're 3-0. That's an SEC tilt. I thought South Carolina had a legitimate shot at being, third or fourth best team in the SEC this year. Lenora Sellers has been a disappointment. I don't know if he was as good as people. I think there was a little bit of revisionist history around Lenora Sellers in his performances last year. His stats were like meh, but he was able to come up big and clutch at moments. He got hurt against Vandy. Hopefully he's able to go. I think he had a little bit of a concussion situation. Mizzou is a 12.5-point favorite.
I got Mizzou.
All right, I'm going to go with that as well. Mizzou for both of us. And then Battle of the iSchools. Illinois, number 9, travels to number 19, Indiana. Not much to say about that. Illinois, top 10 team in the country, but still a 4.5-point dog to Indiana. This is Indiana's probably biggest game that stiffest opponent that they've had to play in the regular season.
I like Illinois because I've been high on them all year. So I'm not going to get away from that. It's a primetime game in Bloomington, which is very, very rare. But I like Brett Bielema in that matchup. I think that's going to be one for the ages. You disrespected the Friday night Rutgers Iowa matchup in Piscataway.
I don't think I disrespected that at all. 8 p.m. on Fox.
You just didn't acknowledge it. How can you not acknowledge that? Rutgers is the birthplace of college football. It's also where it will die. But that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, I'm not going to pay attention to that. It'll be entertaining to watch on Friday night at 8 p.m., but got an hour and 45-minute run on Saturday morning, so I'm not going to stay up for the end of that one. That's not going to keep me awake. Yeah, I'm going to go Illinois as well. I think Illinois needs this win, I think, way more than Indiana does. Illinois needs to get into the playoff. If they go on into Bloomington and get that win, I think that bodes really well for them. What's the rest of their schedule?
I mean, let's be real about Frank Signetti playing a real team.
Yeah.
They played Old Dominion. They won by 13. Kennesaw State and Indiana State. So
that's for Indiana. Yeah, Illinois has USC after this, Purdue, Ohio State, Washington, Rutgers, Maryland, Wisconsin, Northwestern.
We're not picking this game, but USC Michigan State is intriguing to me.
Yeah.
USC backdoored their way into the top 25 in the AP poll. Now that, teams keep losing in front of them and they keep winning. But that game intrigues me.
I think it's interesting. I think if Illinois can get past Indiana, they might be a one-loss Big Ten team, which could be a problem.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean that could be a problem. I mean, there could be 2 or 3 teams with only one loss. Let's say Illinois loses to Ohio State loses to Penn State, and then Penn State drops something. I don't know. Like there could be a 3-way tie with one-loss teams.
Right. I mean, and you look at it, I think as it stands, USC could be a 10-win, and like there are going to be 10-win teams out the wazoo in the Big Ten. I think, obviously Penn State has that capability. Ohio State certainly. Indiana has a chance because I don't think their schedule is great. Again, USC, Oregon. If Illinois does their thing, I think that could be some serious. That could be serious too. So I mean, they could rattle off four or five 10-win teams based on just how the schedules worked out, because everybody avoids big names this year, it seems.
Yeah, I think the only just to pivot out of the Big Ten now. I think Indiana has to play Illinois, Oregon, and Ohio State, so they've got a tough road ahead of them. Somebody who could not rattle off 4 or 5 wins in a row. This is the last thing I'm going to pivot to. Florida. Lost to USF, lost to LSU. Probably going to lose at Miami this week. Then they've got Texas, and then they've got A&M. They could be 1-5 6 weeks into the college football season. And then they finish it. They have Georgia left. There's a couple other games, but they've got Georgia, Ole Miss, Tennessee, and Florida State. Florida might be a 3 or 4 win team this year.
The buyout for Billy Napier is $19.38 million.
You better hope Michael Jordan can give them a loan or something. Because goodness,
I'm sure the university find somebody they could front that money if they needed to get rid of them.
That is such a massive buyout. The only teams on their schedule, they have 2 opponents on their schedule from this week that are not ranked the rest of the season. It's Mississippi State and at Kentucky. Texas, they might be able to squeak something by, but that's going to be a terrible game to watch. But they've got A&M, Georgia, Ole Miss, Tennessee, and Florida State. Like I mentioned, I don't see them winning any of those games at all. Dude, a 3 or 4 win Florida team, like
after starting the year where they did, is hilarious.
Oh, that could be awful. And they started 55-0 on Long Island.
Hey, listen, LIU used to be legit, but then they went from the Blackbirds to the Sharks. But let's be real, like Florida started the year. Where did they start? I thought they started. I'm sorry, I'm in the Big Ten. That's why I can't find them.
I got it. Florida started. Did they even start ranked?
They were number 15 in the country.
Oh yeah, they were. Right behind Michigan and above SMU.
Yes. SMU made the playoff, and then they bumped up. It keeps going to the Big Ten. Stupid. And then they bumped up to 13, and then the doors fell off.
K-State's having a rough season as well. A team that was 16th ranked team in the country or something.
And again, the motto of this episode has been, the grass isn't always greener outside of Happy Valley. And for Penn State, they just got to keep doing what they're doing. You start that out by enjoying the bye week. You rest up. You've had some great development chances in these three games. You've played a lot of guys. You're still within that threshold of the red shirt. Which, speaking of, I mentioned that, and I want to bring up the fact that UCLA and Virginia Tech, because their coach left when they did, the portal is open for them. They haven't played 3 games. So hypothetically, these guys could all still play this season or redshirt if they decide to go somewhere else. So that's something to monitor as well, because they fired them when they did. They still haven't got to the 4 games. But again, your first big test is against Oregon. It's a whiteout. It's going to be unlike anything that they've seen. And for Penn State, they got to come out and take care of business. And you do that by playing the brand of football that you've been playing defensively. You let Drew Aller cook a little bit, get him some confidence, and then you go off and you see what happens. And, it's a home game. Penn State should probably be favored between 3 and 7 points. I, again, don't understand why Oregon dropped so low, but that's a little bit of a hint towards the Ducks coming across the country now. It's going to be a weird travel situation for them because they got to fly into Harrisburg and then then drive up to State College in University Park. Luckily for them, it's a 7:30 game and not a noon kick. So their body clocks will be more so along the lines of 4 o'clock than 9 o'clock in the morning. But that's the next step. Take down Oregon. That's challenge number 1. If you're able to do that, then you have all kinds of momentum going into that second segment of the football schedule.
Yeah. Opening spread right now is 6.5 points to Penn State. Current spread 6.5. It opened at 3.5. So it's gotten 3 points larger since that spread opened a couple weeks
Oregon
ago.
has handled all of their opponents. I mean, they struggled a little bit against Northwestern, but again, that's grass isn't always greener on the other side, Kevin. That's the motto of this show. And that's about all we have. Do you have any parting shots before we get out of here and take a nice little week off? Hopefully mine's a little tied up with some busyness on my end. I got curve playoffs potentially, baby potentially, lots of what ifs, and I don't know where I'm going to be on any given day.
No. I'm about 4.5, 5 weeks into my half marathon prep. I got that at the middle of November coming up. So bit drained. Now I get to focus on running this week instead of recording a podcast midweek. So,
well, I'm sorry to take away from your training, Kevin, but we'll see how it goes. For Kevin Quigley, this has been Jarrod Prugar. We appreciate you as always for listening. We'll catch you again next week on the Lasching Out Podcast on the Nittany Sports Now Network.